Welcome to the DC pod. I'm your host, Christian, joined as always, of course, by Dallas diehard Darcy.
That's me. Let's go, Mavs, baby. Get a win against Houston. That's what we like to see. Best team in Texas. You know how he does.
What do you call yourself? MFFL? Mavs fans for life, right?
Yeah, Mavs maniacs, baby. That's what we are.
Okay, there you go. So look, we've got a great episode today. We're actually going to have a little bit of international spice flavor opinion. We go across to Canada. We're joined by Carl. Fortunate enough to have him come on the pod, which was awesome. We go over some highs and lows, and then we I hit Darcy with some rapid fire questions. And then we finish off with some locks of the day, of course, for tomorrow's slate, which is a big 10 games. So with all that being the case, are you ready, Darcy?
Let's get the ball rolling, baby. Let's do it.
Lead pass. Stop it! Stop it! You don't do it like that! What are you doing, Dragons? Parker. J.O. Smith! We just saw men fly! Iguodala to Curry. Back to Iguodala. Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection. Decide not to use it. Curry way downtown. Play hard, step back, puts up the three, got hit, shot's good, and one! James Harden double team, and a chance for a 4-point play.
Okay, so as I just mentioned in the intro, we'll get things started with some highs and lows now that we're 2.5 weeks in. Das, do you want to take us away with a high first off?
A high for me, I'm high on Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors. 62-point performance. The first kind of superstar to step up and make a big statement, I guess, in this season. 62 points, 18 of 19 at the free throw line, 7 threes. Guy was unbelievable. And it looked like the old Curry, the way he was taking over the game, and just it felt like the Warriors of old in a lot of ways. I guess why I'm so high on that performance. And I guess when you actually look at their body of work, in the first few games, it's starting to look quite decent. They had a big win against Portland after getting spanked the game before. And then Sacramento, that's a good win. Detroit on the road, Chicago on the road, the two teams you got to take care of. And they're only losses, they're not bad losses. Looking at Brooklyn on the road, Milwaukee on the road, and then, of course, the loss to Portland. So they've got a winning record right now, and Steph Curry looks like he's playing better than anyone else in the league. He's up to 32 points per game now with that 62 effort. And actually, an interesting little nugget in that game, he missed one free throw in that game. He was 18 of 19. Before that, he'd made 80 straight in regular season games without a miss.
8-0?
The guy is unbelievable. Yeah, 80. He's made 80 in a row.
Wow. Yeah, I think Draymond, they're huge that he's back in the fold now. It almost feels like they're back to how they were the last couple of years. I loved his introduction. I don't know if you were going to speak on Draymond at all and coming back in, but not just what he does defensively and the heart and the passion, but the stuff he sort of recognizes on offense, the chemistry is immediately there, and it's clear with Steph how he can just find him wherever. He understands how Steph plays so well that these last two games, it's the Steph we expected this season. And yeah, it's a joy to watch whenever Curry's absolutely balling.
We were definitely quick to kind of say the Warriors don't have enough when they got blown out in that first game. The first couple of games they got blown out. Milwaukee beat them easily as well. But with Draymond back in the fold for those last couple of games, we spoke about in our first pod, we spoke about their toughness, and he is their toughness. You can see it on the floor. Like, he gets after it. He pushes guys around. He's yelling at his teammates saying, get here, go there, run around, keep moving, get Steph open. I think what's best about Draymond, and you touched on it with the chemistry with him and Steph, when he comes down the court after a defensive rebound, he sprints down the court and flings it to Curry as quickly as possible. It's so hard to guard. It's so deadly. It's one of the most deadly kind of combinations ever in the game, the way that Curry shoots the ball. I guess the key to their offense, really, we know over the years, has been ball movement and player movement, and Draymond facilitates that to an absolute T. And like, they look really efficient at times. When Steph's going off, one thing that I think was huge about his performance, and I guess what I'm majorly high on the Warriors, is the reliability of having a superstar teammate who you know can go off at any time. It just feels like it's been so long since Curry went off, and for him to go off like that, like he was cooking. They couldn't stop him getting to the basket. 19 free throw attempts. He was getting all the way to the hoop, and he was stepping back with just it's nasty, some of his moves, man. The confidence that he gives his teammates, it showed me the game after the Portland game. We dropped 62. The next night they had Sacramento coming in. Maybe a week ago we would have said Sacramento might have had a chance in that game, and they blew them out with great team play. In the first half, they basically blew them out. Wiggins, 16 points and 5 assists on 50% shooting. Pascal came off the bench and finally did something. 14 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Wiseman looked really good in that game as well, getting some nice finishes at the rim, looking athletic. And Oubre finally came out of a slump. He just felt, okay, it's all good. We've got Curry on my team. I can now just shoot, and it will be no worries. The pressure will be off me a little bit. He was 4 or 6 for deep for 18 points. So I think I'm really high on the Warriors after this Curry performance. If Curry can continue, he looks like an MVP candidate right now, to be honest. And he's the type of guy that can lead a team to the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I love the way Curry's been playing these last couple of games. And I think, well, the fact that you mentioned his ability to get to the free throw line has suddenly changed. I can't remember the rate he got to the line last season, but man, this feels like he's doubled his output. I can't remember him getting to the line this amount of times. This is very James Harden-esque of him, in that he's not having to rely on that outside jumper all the time. And the fact that he can get to the rim, get to the line, draw fouls, put pressure on the big men around the rim, it just basically sets him up for, to find some rhythm. If you make 10 free throws in a row, then you come down, the next possession, you're going to feel good about shooting the ball. It's just, as a basketball player, Darcy, like everyone knows, as soon as you see the ball go in a few times, I mean, and that's, that's really the story of it for me. I other than Draymond and everything you just mentioned, but yeah, I think getting to the line, and he looks like he's bulked up a little bit. It hasn't been a huge amount, but I mean, it's enough that the fact that I think he could go through this season now and take a bit of punishment and still be able to survive. But I think that style of play that they were doing from the first 2 games, and yes, they were against quality opponents, but it clearly wasn't going to hold up. So I get how you were saying we probably overreacted in the last pod, but Darcy, we were just going off what we saw at the time. We probably in hindsight should have thought about the impact of not having Draymond there and what it means now that he's back in the fold. But yeah, man, I definitely think we overreacted, and I think they're more than in the race for that, if not playoff spot immediately, at least a play-in for sure. So no, that's a really good one to get things started, Das.
Definitely. And one little nugget as well, every game that he's hit 5 threes, they've won. He's shooting about almost 12 attempts a game. If he's hit 5, then, well, clearly he's cooking if he hits 5.
Yeah.
But they've won every game that he's hit 5, and he's been only 2 or 3 in every one of their losses. So I suppose he is the key to them. And yeah, if he can keep balling, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Something definitely to keep an eye on. Man, I hope they play I don't know their schedule, but I hope they play some good teams now to really get a feel of where they might be able to
Clippers.
Huge.
Clippers tomorrow, I think.
Oh, okay.
Massive.
Great timing. All right, let's see how they go.
Hopefully Paul George will be back in the fold, hopefully.
But probably no Kawhi, right? Because it's a back-to-back for the Clippers.
True. We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. For me, my high, I've picked a player here, Das. I've gone Malcolm Brogdon. So I think he's just under the radar. No one seems to ever appreciate him. Milwaukee definitely didn't appreciate him.
The quietest rookie of the year ever.
100%. That was obviously Embiid's rookie season where he only played 30-odd games and there was no real key standout other than sort of Brogdon. So, but look, this season, man, he's balling again and not many people would know. So if you're just looking at his stat line, he's 22 points a game, 4.5 rebounds. He's just putting up 7 assists, and this is coming on 52% shooting from the field. Looking at off the back of a game like yesterday, they were down 10 with a minute to go in New Orleans. Pretty heroic comeback. And although he may not have been directly involved in that comeback to force them to OT, he was pretty big in the OT period, and he ended up hitting the game winner on Eric Bledsoe, who's a pretty rugged defender. And pretty much Brogdon was able to go to work on him, wasn't afraid of the moment, put up, as you say,
not
a
afraid
nice
of
floater, bounce a couple of times, soft touch, landed in. And so it's crazy to think he's a second rounder. Yes, the TJ Warren injury hurts with the Pacers, but they sit at a record of 5-2. It feels like Sabonis has taken another step, and that's just because of his outside shooting. So before this year, Sabonis wasn't a big three-point shooter, so that opens up all types of possibilities for the Pacers offense, especially. And even missing a guy like TJ Warren, I still think the Pacers have a great shot at not only finishing top 6. Man, I think after seeing the first 6 or 7 games, they could probably finish top 4. So I'm not sure if that's an overreaction, but I mean, if Brogdon keeps up his play, if Oladipo is looking like the old Oladipo, there's a real, appeal to this team, because at the end of the day, you have a guy like Miles Turner, who also is about as good as it comes with protecting the rim. He puts up ridiculous numbers block-wise, and the really impressive thing out of all of it, just the fact that the Pacers were able to get it done with Sabonis in foul trouble, and he actually didn't play the last 5 minutes of regulation. He didn't play at all in OT, but they were still able to get it done, and it was probably due to the guard play. But Brogdon and Oladipo are such a nice pairing, and I just think Brogdon doesn't get enough love. And I'm super high on him.
Yeah, they're both under the radar, and you just look at some of the seasons that Brogdon's put together. Statistically, he is very efficient shooting the ball, and that to me is why it was so bizarre for him getting out of Milwaukee. At least I couldn't believe that Milwaukee got rid of him. But he's been the engine room, and you can tell he's a guy that the coach leans on for big minutes, take care of the ball, make good decisions, have a good assist-to-turnover ratio. And when he's shooting the ball like he is now from 3, Brogdon, he's looking like a borderline all-star at this stage.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee will definitely regret not bringing him back on board. Now they find themselves in a situation where it would be like, shit, maybe they don't need to go and, give up quite a lot for a guy like Drew Holiday, and they can look to kind of bring in another position because they already have a guy like Brogdon there in the backcourt. So interesting to sort of go back and see if Milwaukee, knowing what they know now, would have been willing to chunk up that money.
I'd love to see a matchup in the playoffs between those two. I'd love to see that.
Oh man, that'd be tough. I'd really enjoy that. Yeah, for sure. Look, I'll go to you, Darcy, your second high, because my second high is Golden State. So we've sort of covered off on that. We've mentioned all the points. So I'll take it over to you for your second high before we reach the head over to the lows.
All right. Another team that I'm big high on so far, really close to the Pacers in that kind of slot in the Eastern Conference, is the Celtics. And in particular, Jaylen Brown. He's become a genuine all-star from the looks of things. Everything I've seen so far, guy's been amazing. He's number 1 in the league in field goals made per game. He's getting buckets. 27 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.5 steals on almost 60% shooting and 43% from deep. That is really quite special the way he's been playing so far. And I think that's super important for Boston to kind of work out who their stars are going to be or who's their studs. It's clear now that not only is Tatum ascending, but Brown is ascending to a bona fide all-star. At least that's what I'm taking away so far. Tatum, he's already hit 2 game winners. So that he's very confident in his ability, that tough one over Giannis, and then he hit a nice one over Blake Griffin at Detroit to steal that win. He's shooting 43% from deep as well. So those two as a pairing, you start to look at them and the other superstar teams and the superstar duos around the league, and you think Boston could pretty much hang with all of them, the way that these two guys are playing. Brown was amazing in the bubble, and Tatum obviously shone all of last season. So to see them kind of take that experience in the bubble and that kind of success that they had, even though they didn't go as far as they wanted, they were very successful and were really close to getting all the way to the finals. It's obviously doing great things for Boston. I'm really high on what I've seen for them so far, to have that reliability of 2 all-star, swingmen that are so switchable on defense and they're shooting so accurately from the outside. It's just a tough matchup. When I had a pretty good look at the Boston against Toronto game, because I know Toronto needed that win badly when they got back home, had Boston coming in and they jumped on Boston in the first quarter. I think they were up a dozen or 15 maybe, shooting the three really well in the first quarter, Toronto were. And then behind Tatum and Brown, they were able to just flip the switch and really start to lock up defensively and create quality opportunities on the other end and lots of three-point shooting for their guys on the bench. Tatum and Brown, their decision-making and playmaking for me has just been first class. I think they're really growing as players and they look hungry to me. They look really, really hungry. I think something else that makes me high on Boston would be a couple of their complementary players who are kind of, I think they're a good fit around Tatum and Brown as superstars. One that I really like is Time Lord, Robert Williams III, 27th pick in 2018. He needs more minutes desperately, not only for my fantasy team, but for Boston in general. He's shooting 75% from the field. He's averaging only 6 points and 7 rebounds, which is a bit modest, but 1.1 steals, 1.6 blocks. Okay, so we're looking at close to a double-double with over a steal and a block and a half a game. He's only playing 16 minutes. He's not even seeing the floor, really. He's playing a really small role. So I think he's a big X factor for them. More minutes for him. And then another guy that I like, who he's only kind of come along in the last couple of games since he's got a bit more court time, is Peyton Pritchard, the 26th pick in this year's draft. Is 22-year-old guy, probably a little bit old for this draft class coming in, but he's a gamer at Oregon. He has really good point guard instincts. I really liked what I saw from him in the pick and roll. He was making good decisions and really stingy on D. I was seeing some flashes of TJ McConnell in him with his stinginess and his ability to just manage a game and kind of take away what the other team's kind of flow of the game was. He was really showed some scoring potential as well. He, in his last game, he dropped 23 points and 8 assists against Toronto. You know, we're talking about an elite backcourt. You're going up against Lowry and Van Fleet, who also had a great game. But there was one play that Peyton Pritchard had a one-on-one with Van Fleet, took him to the middle, hezzied as quick as he could. Van Fleet took a little wobble, went down, and then he was able to step back and hit a big three. So I think it's interesting to have him in there with Kemba out of the lineup right now. And a big question for Boston and why I'm also quite high on them, besides these role players stepping up a little bit and Tatum and Brown, is they're missing an all-star. They're missing Kemba Walker. So if you're getting the very best of Kemba Walker when he comes back, which is a big if, then this team, you know, they could be at the top of the Eastern Conference right now. And it's really interesting, I think, going forward to see what will happen with Kemba at the deadline, whether they think about trying to get some other kind of piece the way that Brown's come along.
Yeah, look, it's all valid, but I freaking hate Boston so much that I just can't sit here and be like, man, I'm so happy for them. I love that Jalen's doing well and he's taking another step and blah, blah. Because before the season, I thought their under was pretty close to a lock, just given losing Hayward, all the injury cloud around Kemba. There was just not a lot to like about Boston going into this year. Their only real free agency addition was bringing in Jeff Teague and, you know, Tristan Thompson, and I wasn't very high on either of those guys. So I am pretty surprised that, you know, firstly, they were able to get the dub over the Bucks. They got a love that, as you say, they got a really nice win against Toronto.
And at Indiana.
Correct.
They beat Memphis at home
they
and went to Detroit.
Indiana. Yep, they split Indiana. They split Detroit. So they could have. Well, maybe you could say they should have beaten Detroit in that first game. But anyway, we'll because you've said high, we'll stay high on Boston, and I'll try and pretend that I'm also high on Boston. Yeah, look, the thing that I'm kind of shocked by is Jaylen Brown, as you sort of started off with. I did not see that coming at all. I know he played well, but I didn't think he would take another step and sort of almost be, neck and neck with Tatum in terms of just a threat from the perimeter, being able to score at sort of all three levels. He's not just a jump shooter. He can get to the rim comfortably. He can get out and run pretty easily on fast breaks, showcases athleticism. And then the most annoying part is he already came into the league as a pretty solid defender. So that's his side that he can sort of hold his own on. And now that he's adding that offensive part to his game, it's making him quite the package. And I think whether he plays the 2-3 or, Tatum plays that 3-4, it makes him quite a scary proposition. I still
Such a
love
luxury to have.
how Philly match up against them though, Darcy. I'll put in that tidbit.
Philly haven't been bad either.
No, Philly have been very good. 6-1 for anyone who didn't know, top of the league, whatever. We won't go into that, but yeah, that does annoy me how well Boston's been doing. You outlined all the points perfectly, so there's no point really touching on it more. But yeah, something to definitely keep an eye on, as you say, with the Kemba news and where Boston sort of what they sort of look to do at the deadline, because they may definitely be a buyer if they sort of see an opportunity to add a third piece. If they're like, look, Tatum and Brown are absolutely balling. We're not really sure about Kemba. Let's potentially downgrade Kemba, but get something that's more of a sure thing. I don't know. They'll definitely be active. They always are, Boston, similar to Philly, always active, looking for a deal.
Yeah.
Danny Ainge never sits on his hands. He's always looking to do something. So definitely worth keeping an eye on, that's for sure. And also to note, they didn't have Marcus Smart against the Raptors, and he's normally, the engine of that team, the heart and soul. He's their Draymond, so to speak. So that was even more impressive.
It feels like a couple of just big wins, I suppose. Those clutch wins, those wings that kind of build character and build confidence in their team. That's what I've seen so far from them.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you know what Boston are? Are they 4-3?
5-3.
5-3. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll start off with the lows, Das. I've got a couple here.
Okay.
I'll start with a team. I'm going.
Got to get critical at some stage.
I'm going Minnesota.
Okay.
Race between them and OKC, I think, will be for the bottom seed. I know OKC are playing well, but again, that doesn't really change anything for me. I think it'll be a case where, come the deadline, they trade off any veteran piece they can get for an asset, and they'll just continue to tank. But it's hard for me to see this Minnesota team, even with Cat coming back. I don't think they'll get above 25 wins. They're a really confusing makeup. I would just probably start a guy like Anthony Edwards and just develop him. You got to get something out of this season. They're such a tough team to watch, and if you just want to go off the stats, they're 27th in the league for offense, and they're 30th in the league for defensive rating. So they struggle on both sides of the ball. And I'll finish off by saying this: they better hope the lottery gods are on their side, because for anyone that didn't know, Golden State have their first round pick this year, and it's only top 3 protected. So if that finishes 4 or 5, that goes immediately to Golden State. And we all know the lottery odds have been, let's say, equaled out a little bit. So it's not so set in stone, i.e. if you have the worst record, you get the most lottery balls. There's this sort of equalization that they did. So it's a fair chance for everyone who's in that bottom, say 5 or 6 range. So, I mean, look, that pick conveys to 2022. That's totally unprotected. So, I mean, I'm not sure what's worse. I think probably knowing how stacked the 2021 draft is, they would probably definitely want to hope they're a top 3 pick. But it's just safe to say in general, Das, I don't think I could be lower on a team with the Timberwolves. I watched a little bit of how they played the last couple of games, be it they played a home and away with Denver. So they played at home against Denver and lost that one in a pretty close game. But when it comes down to it and when it comes to crunch time, their offense is a mess. And the same thing happened today. They were sort of in the game for a lot of it, and it comes down to crunch time, and it's what are we doing here? Basically, their starting center, Naz Reid, had to bulk a lot of the load of that big man. He got in foul trouble. They then had to put in Jared Vanderbilt, who's, he played okay today, but I don't know what his prospects are like for the future. But it's all confusing. You've got Rubio there, you've got Russell there. You're then trying to fit in as well Anthony Edwards. You've got Culver there. Okogie's injured, but you've just got this glut of wings that just makes no sense. And so we're unsure yet if their coach, I know he's Saunders' son. No idea if he's a good coach at all yet. But just looking at their crunch time offense, they are the youngest team in the league, or the youngest coach in the league. Is that what you're saying?
Youngest coach in
the league. So look, when it comes down to it, they're just a confusing team. If they're in close games, they better hope Russell or Towns can take them home, because it's not going to be through any other reason. they're a mess. They're a mess to me. I don't know how you feel. They're a mess.
No, I think that's pretty fair enough. What do we know about them? We know that Cat is capable of big time numbers, and I suppose looks big numbers on a bad team kind of thing is what we're come to expect from Cat. And we're hoping, maybe with D'Angelo Russell, now they might have two guys who are at all-star level who can together could be a deadly duo. But obviously without him on the floor, it is quite puzzling to see what's going on. I didn't understand the Rubio. Obviously they made the trade to get him, but I don't really see how that fits. Like, we already had D'Lo was playing with a great point guard in Golden State, even only for a few games, and that clearly didn't work. I don't know why they thought it would work with Rubio. Russell had a great game today. He was killing. I think he had 28 points, 10 assists, and only one turnover. He was really making great decisions and shooting the ball well. But yeah, like you said, in crunch time, there's nowhere near enough. They got 25 points from Hernan Gomez, who probably had the game of his life, and still they ended up losing it really pretty easily at the end. It's it's confusing, and you do start your mind quickly kind of rolls away. Oh yeah, they're not that good. There's no chance of playoffs. Let's just roll straight away to them being one of the bottom teams in the league. And now you talk about how they could potentially, if they fall to number 4 or 5 in the draft, they lose their pick. That would really be crushing. And when you see a guy like Wiseman, who they could have picked, balling out for the Warriors, and you're kind of hoping that Edwards is going to get 15 or 20 and have one decent game, it's really gloom.
Look, Edwards has the tools. I'm not saying he's a terrible player in terms of, when I say tools, he's got the physical attributes. I mean, not necessarily the skill. He needs to develop that. But it's pretty clear when he has the ball, he's looking at doing two things. He's either going to take a couple of dribbles and pull up, or he's just going to attack the rim. There's no in between. He doesn't have a floater game. I've sort of yet to see him be used in sort of the post-up situation extensively. He's definitely not the type of guy that can drive the paint and kick. Hell no, that's way too much for him at the moment. He can't read the floor or see the game like that at this stage. But yeah, man, it makes you feel, it'd be pretty sweet if, they had Wiseman right now, giving him the reps that he could be getting. And yes, it's probably not in a great situation with this Minnesota team, but just going forward, you'd feel much better if you had Wiseman out there starting. And man, I mean, Wiseman's a pretty fluid guy. You could throw some pretty crazy lineups out there. Like if you're to come up against, the Lakers and how big they are, it'd be pretty sweet to have Cat and Wiseman out there to face up against AD and potentially a guy like Gasol or even just to throw at LeBron or anything. It's just a different look. But Anthony Edwards is, I think Fran Fraschilla, the draft guy, he said about Caboclo a few years ago. He said he's like 2 years away from being 2 years away. It feels like Anthony Edwards is 2 years away from being 2 years away. Like I can't see him. And if you just want to look at how the last young wing went in Minnesota, his name's Andrew Wiggins. Like how potentially did that turn out? So God, I don't know.
Track record's no good for them. And even if Cat comes back, it's feel like we may as well just tank at this stage.
Gosh, yeah, I don't know. It's depressing thinking about the Timberwolves and their situation. So we'll move on, Dust. We'll head to your low because I'm done with Minnesota.
Yeah, we'll stop the pain on Minnesota there, and we'll throw the pain on a team who's had some success. I'm really low on so far this season, Pascal Siakam. He hasn't figured it out offensively. His scoring has dropped. He was 23 a game last season on 47%. Through the first 6 to 7 games, he's down to 17 points, 7 rebounds, only 3 assists. He's only shooting 40% from the field for your starting power forward, and he's just shooting 30% from three. And right now, he's making 1.8 threes, but he's attempting 6 a game. He's playing the whole game, 35 minutes. But to me, when I look at Pascal, his post game doesn't seem to have evolved very much. I'm not seeing a better kind of package of moves on the block. He still tends to force contact and shoot a lot of tough runners in the lane. And there's no sign of a fadeaway shot from him. He seems to kind of be praying and hoping that the face-up three-point jumper will get it done. And percentage of shooting it at 30%, that's just not a good shot for him. He's an interior player. Okay, when you're open, shoot the odd three. Start putting up 6 threes a game and kind of hope that you can start to become a 40% shooter. I don't really think that's the strategy that's going to work for him or for the Raptors. I think he also hasn't shown much, I guess. We know he's a good defender, but he hasn't shown that lockdown potential, or at least statistically, he hasn't shown the ability to get lots of blocks and steals and deflections. I think the book is closed on him being the first option for this team. We thought post-Kawhi era, we're going to be sweet. We've got an up-and-coming superstar, a guy who's dropped 50 points in a finals game, a guy who, offensively looked really tough to stop because he was slashing to the basket a lot. He's developing his jump shot and being tough on the offensive glass. I think it's kind of clear to me. I've seen enough basically throughout it last season, the postseason, the bubble, and then now the start of this season. He's not their first option. And it kind of came to a head when I was watching them go up against the Celtics, and Tatum and Brown were going shot for shot, bang for bang with VanVleet. And it's like he just wasn't even there. It just didn't seem like he was. I'm not sure if he's talented enough offensively to kind of make that next jump. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, funny enough, I had Siakam as well. So we've each sort of covered off on one thing that we've both sort of have both had Warriors for high, and now we've both got Siakam for one of the lows. I think it all stemmed from the postseason. He looked really good, obviously, during the regular season when you can get out, run and gun, use his athleticism, basically beat defenders. And effectively, now that obviously Kawhi is no longer there, the spotlight's on him a little bit more to be that sort of guy that could go and get a bucket, because we know in the playoffs, it's very hard for the guards to be able to do that when it comes to half court and things get more physical and less fouls are called, that you need that wing scorer to be able to really get buckets for you. And he's proven that he can't do that. Look, he's not the sole reason that took Toronto a 1-5, but shoot, he's definitely played his part in it. I mean, I looked up the stats as well, and as you said, 5 points less than last season. His field goal percentage has dropped by 5%. His 3-point percentage has dropped by 6%. And I know he's averaging 3 turnovers this season, so it's only a 6-game sample, but it is a career high. And that obviously is a result of probably getting more usage, but it's still not good signs. He's averaging nearly 5 fouls a game. He's already had a bit of disciplinary action put on him. I know the Philly game, he got fouled out early in that, and he left and headed down the tunnel when there was still 30 seconds left in that game, and that's why he got suspended for
frustration.
Yeah, he got suspended for the one game that Toronto actually won, which was at home to the Knicks. So Siakam wasn't even involved in that one, which is interesting. And if you look at how the Knicks have been going, that's actually a decent win.
That's a good win.
That's a good win. Yeah. So, and they beat him pretty comfortably in the end by 17 points. And again, that was without Siakam, and obviously you're coming up against a pretty desperate Raptors team. But it's all adding up, and it's not working out in Pascal's favor.
At 1-5, you got to look at your superstar players and say, are you getting it done? And I don't think he is so far. I think it can't be understated. The relocation to Tampa is difficult. Like, they've been disadvantaged more than any other team in the league. I know there's no excuses, and I'm sure you wouldn't hear that excuse from Toronto or Nick Nurse, but there's no home court advantage there. And I think something that their success has been built on in the last few years is the whole We the North campaign, the massive crowds and their incredible record at home. I think it can't be understated that it's been difficult for them, but there's warning signs at 1-5 for Toronto and Pascal for sure.
Do you have a second low you want to hit on?
Yeah. Hopefully you don't have this one too, but I'm low on Russell Westbrook and the Washington Wizards. We've seen Westbrook's style of play. It's incredibly high usage, and I just got another refresher after watching a couple games. At times, he's just so inefficient, and I think at times his play kind of hurts the morale of his team. He's getting 20 points a game right now on 20 shots. Is your point guard putting up 20 shots? He's shooting 39% from the field, only 22% on threes, but he's still taking 4.4 threes a game. He's shooting 22%. Stop shooting threes, Russell. He can't shoot them. I don't know why he's keep doing it. He's at almost 5 turnovers a game as well. So, yeah, great. Look, you're averaging 11 assists. You're making lots of plays for the team. Awesome. You're throwing it away half the time. Okay. Sometimes you might just be feeling out his teammates. But he's also taking 20 shots for me, that's just straight hogging it. And I think at the moment, no one else on his team has a rhythm besides Beal. Obviously, he just does his thing no matter what. Beal's great, but I think a guy like Bertans might be able to find a way to be quite effective with Westbrook, but he's struggling so far. Bertans hasn't really got anything going. A couple of games with 2 or 3 threes, but he hasn't had a breakout yet. And for me, I can just kind of, when you look at their record, and it's quite bizarre. They lost to Philly on the road. They had Orlando at home twice, lost both. They had Chicago at home twice, lost both. Like, you just can't lose to Orlando and Chicago back to back to back to back. You just can't do that. Their only win was at Brooklyn, which was a good win, but most people would have seen what happened there. Kyrie had a pretty good look at a three to win the game, and then KD got the rebound and basically had a shot on inside the elbow, uncontested jump shot to win the game, and he missed it. So they got out of jail there. And the only other win, is that the only win they've got? Or they had one win at Minnesota, and Westbrook didn't play in that game.
Yeah.
They scored a season high 130 points, and 8 guys got in double figures. You're just like, for me, that's just, the writing is on the wall. I can see it already. It looks like they find their way into the playoffs, and then Westbrook shoots them out of games when it matters. I can just see it already.
Yeah, it's definitely got that vibe. Well, Rust Ball is normally what they call it, man. It's a pain to watch. Just going back to what you're speaking about with the Brooklyn game and that ending on a defensive possession, offense, sorry. I can't remember how long was left, but it was in the last 30 seconds. And anyway, the ball got swung to the top of the key, and it was to Westbrook. And Beal was kind of, you could see him on the wing. He was kind of on edge, like sort of like, no, like, give me the rock, give it back to me. And Beal didn't get the ball back. Westbrook just settled for a three. And Westbrook, after shooting it, just like held his form for like 2 or 3 seconds after it like clearly missed. And his defender, Luau Cabarro, just ran down the other end, and the outlet was thrown to him, and he finished. And I don't think Russ had even like passed half court by the time Luau had laid it in. I think Bertans had to like sprint back and try and like help out. Wasn't even Bertans' man. And anyway, I think the next possession and that was to tie it up. So the next possession to take the lead, it was sort of a Beal isolation, and then he found Thomas Bryant for the dunk under the basket.
Yeah, nice.
And then that's where it happened with the Brooklyn possession, as you say, and Kyrie missed, KD missed. But God, like, Westbrook was doing everything he could to basically lose that game. It was so absurd. It was so hard to watch. I think everyone was pretty pumped going in because they've only seen just the Beal iteration of it, and, Beal surrounded by, shooters or a little bit of help. And it was just like, man, if he has one other all-star guy next to him, that'll make a huge difference. But Westbrook's the wrong guy. I think that the thinking was Scott Brooks, a healthy Westbrook, he's motivated. We saw how Paul George was for that. Was it half a season or 3/4 of the season with OKC where he played like an MVP, and people were like, man, see the impact that Westbrook can have on another guy. And it's just like, no, like, that was because Paul George was exceptional in isolation and was absolutely on fire, knocking down every single shot. So
they fell apart in the playoffs, that team.
And
Utah,
true. And that's
squashed them in 6 games.
Correct. So that's the Lillard, right?
I think. No, that was the season before that when they had Carmelo and Ingles.
Yeah, you're right. Donovan Mitchell beat him Westbrook on his own. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That in the next season. Sorry, Lillard. Yeah.
The thing that stands out to me is that one play it's funny that you talk about that one play where they give up a fast break layup in the last 30 seconds of the game. Like, that's a morale crushing thing for the teammates to see their superstar teammate kind of take an ill-advised shot, maybe not give the ball back to Beal, because Beal won them that game. He made 2 or 3 great plays at the end to win it. They didn't win because of Westbrook's great game, even though I think he had close to a triple-double. But for me, it's got some bad signs. And I guess I still think that they'll be back in the hunt for the playoffs. I still can see Westbrook going on a bit of a tear later on in the season, and he is putting up a lot of numbers. So I think they might be able to get it going, and Scott Brooks knows him. So Scott Brooks probably didn't bat an eyelash when Westbrook didn't run back on D, or when he looks at the stat sheet and goes, yeah, Westbrook had 10 turnovers tonight, shot 8 threes and only made 1. I don't think, if there's one guy who can kind of help the rest of the team understand that this is how Westbrook plays and this is the only way we're going to get the best out of him, it's Scott Brooks. But yeah, dangerous signs. And for right now, it's really tough to watch.
Yeah. Well said. All right. So that wraps things up with high-low. Okay. So we're back with some more highs and lows because we're joined by our first international guest, Darcy. We've got Kyle from Vancouver, who is a LeBron fan. Kyle, do you want to kick it off with a high?
LeBron section.
Yeah. Admittedly. Do I want to kick it off with a high? For sure. Yeah. Let me get things started with, I'm high on McCall Bridges and the Phoenix Suns. We got Phoenix
Valley
Suns.
boys.
Yeah, the Suns, the Valley Boys, lost Oubre. Smaller pieces maybe, but we gained Chris Paul. They gained Chris Paul. And they're 5-2 right now in the West. They've had some pretty good games. They lost a tough one to the Clips recently here. But I'm really high on McCall Bridges. He plays really good defense. And he's really coming into his own here as a three-point shooter. He's aggressive at the right times. He really doesn't make mistakes. I have his game log open right now. They have 7 games. Do you guys want to take a stab how many turnovers he has in 7 games?
I'll say 8.
Sorry,
I've got 0.
I reckon he's got 8 turnovers.
He's got 1 turnover, and it was in the game against the Clips. And their defense is pretty stingy. So he's pretty tidy with it. He's very efficient from the field and the 3-point line. Yeah, what do you guys have to say to that?
I like Bridges a lot. I think he is. Christian will hate this because Philly picked him in the draft and then decided to move him for Zaire Smith, a guy who hasn't even actually played in the league, really. That was a big crumble. And he's from Philly, so that was kind of heartbreaking. Brett Brown can be blamed for that one, I suppose. He's the prototypical kind of young guy that you want, but he's actually not that young. He's had a bit of experience in college. He won in college, which I think a guy like him and Jalen Brunson, they're from winning cultures. They understand how to play and be part of a team and kind of be a star in their role. And star in his role right now is an efficient 3-and-D wing guy. He was, I know for all your fantasy ballers out there, he was elite getting steals last year, elite. And now he's playing even more minutes and he's taking care of the ball, playing in a good system with a good point guard. I think, he could. I'm not sure what the ceiling for him could be. He could really get a lot better.
I got his season long, only 7 games in, 49% from the field, 93% from the free throw line, and his 3-point percentage is at 46, which that'll probably taper down. But his last year he was 36 and 35, so he's only in a 2-year sample. He's gone up. He's going to go up from 36, I think.
Could he be an all-star, you reckon, in his career?
I was about to say, in his career, I think, look, Clay, he can kind of suit the Clay mold. Whether he can, obviously Clay is, what are we talking about? Top 3 second best shooter of all time. So I'm not going to go crazy like that, but I'm saying he plays defense. And like you said, he's elite 3-and-D. He's very efficient. He's averaging 14 points here. I think he could maybe get into all-star status at one point. I think he'll have to develop something though.
Yeah, I'll butt in there and just say I don't think currently how he plays, that's an all-star type player. Those guys don't get rewarded to that level. He needs to basically be a 3-level scorer probably to push his way into the all-star conversation. He's great at the moment, chilling in the corner, chilling in the wing, just basically being able to work off of whether Booker getting attention, CP getting attention, Ayton getting attention, and really capitalize by knocking down those threes. But unless he starts adding a little bit more to his game, i.e. shot clock running down, Devin Booker's not an option, CP's not an option, give it to him and see if he can create. But at the moment, Bridges can't really do that. He needs sort of the play to be set up around. And look, he's the perfect player in this Phoenix Suns system that they currently have. It was almost an absolute ideal situation that, with no Oubre, that he's there still because it's an immediate just slot into that starting 3 spot. And I think if anything, a guy like Jay Crowder will really help Bridges. Just that veteran presence as well can only be a benefit. But it's hard for me to see him being an all-star. I could be wrong, but Kyle, Darcy and I were talking earlier about Jaylen Brown and his real ascendancy. I couldn't see that ascendancy happening. So who's to say in 2 or 3 years' time, Mikal Bridges hasn't taken a major step. But at the moment, I can't really see it.
Yeah, he's gonna have to take a step for him to get an all-star status. I mean, he could become a first team all defensive player for like a few years and then just kind of sneak in 20
Probably
points.
more likely
that way somehow, but that's going to be tough for him. But the Suns are looking good, and he's third year in the league. He's only 24 years old. Booker's I'm looking at Booker's numbers here. He's only averaging 21 points a game right now on 16 shot attempts, which is his lowest.
Low.
His rookie year was 11. This is his lowest since that year. So it's pretty, but they're winning games. So do you guys, Booker was pushing 27 last year. Do you guys see him settling in around this range, or because he's shooting 49 from the field? So it's not, and 34 from the three. I mean, those aren't going to go too much higher. His free throws down, but that's only going to add a point or two.
Darcy, how do you feel about Booker?
You can see his game is different. He's thinking the game more now for sure. You can see how much he's communicating with CP3. He's thinking about winning the game more than anything. I think in previous years it was like, okay, I need to get buckets because that's the only way this team is going to be able to compete. Now he's starting to think the whole game. And you'll see a game where I saw the other day he had, I think, 8 or 9 assists at the half and only had like 3 shots. So he's getting his teammates involved, making sure everyone's running properly. And then when it comes to winning time, you know that he's going to be the guy taking the shot, win or lose. So I think it's a maturity in his game. And I would anticipate probably some big scoring kind of blossoming scoring periods for him throughout the season to come.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can add in the effect of CP as well. Obviously, the fact that if things would break down in previous seasons, it would go to D-Book. And now if things break down in the offense and it's late in the shot clock, it's probably going to be in CP's hands for the most part, or there's a little bit of timeshare now, so to speak. And there's even Ayton in there who's now putting his hand up, asking for a little bit more touches, especially the fact that he's in his second year. So I just think that's basically a result, Kyle, of a new team with CP and Jay Crowder there, especially. There's obviously, like most teams, not having a training camp, not having a summer league, any of those sort of things to be able to develop. I think they're just working it out on the fly. I think if we come back and look at where things are in a month and he's still only, averaging early 20s for points, but Phoenix is still winning, I don't think we'll have too many concerns. But if Phoenix go on to drop a few, and Booker's output is still the same, we'll probably have a few questions, that's for sure. You probably need to lift a little bit because they're a team that should definitely be top 4 in the West based on what we've seen early anyway.
I mean, that's a fair statement. That's a really good point. When they start losing some games and he's at 20, people start, they start looking. Right now, it's no worries. They're winning games. So hopefully they can keep winning. And then, that style of play just keeps showing that, hey, Devin Booker.
Their bench has been winning them games.
Yeah, Cameron Payne has been pretty good. Hey, Sarge just got back.
Cam Johnson.
Johnson's that guy can shoot. He's second year too. He's probably a bit younger than how old is he? Let's see how old he is. He's 24 as well, so him and McCall are the same age. So he came in a bit later.
I think if they get into the playoffs, which I think they will, then you'll start to see Booker doing a hell of a lot of stuff with the ball, a lot of shooting. They'll be relying on him heavily, and I'm really keen to see it. Who are you low on, Kyle? Teams in the league. Who do you think is struggling right now?
I mean, I guess it'd be kind of obvious to point it out, but being from Canada as well, I think it's only right that we do point them out here. They're sitting at 1-5. That's the Toronto Raptors, win percentage of 16.7. It's not looking good. I was watching the last game, and something I heard was they've been up in 10 every single game this season. So they've been up in 10 every game, yet they're 1-5. I'm down on the Raptors, and let's the Celtics game. I actually bet on that. I seen you guys do some. You did some season longs and stuff like that. I had the Raps there. I was thinking, okay, Celtics off a back-to-back. They had played Detroit. They were up in the first quarter, pretty good. Freddie was unbelievable, and then Tatum Tatum is tough. We're not talking about Tatum. We're talking about the Raptors. They've lost to the Pelicans. They only beat the Knicks. They lost to Christian's team, Philly, and they lost to the Spurs. What do you guys think here? It's not looking good. They're missing, sorry, before you guys go on, I mean, realistically, they're really missing their big presence. Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, that is maybe a bigger blow than anybody anticipated. We thought Aaron Baines was a pretty good fit. I thought so myself. He played amazing to start the year in Phoenix last year, and he's just not quite doing it. Alex Len they picked up. That's just like scrambling.
Nothing.
They're scrambling at that point. And then Boucher is good, but he's just too skinny. He can't fill the. I don't know. It's tough. That big spot is just. I don't know. It's hard. They might be looking to make a trade. What are your guys' thoughts on the Raptors so far?
All right. Well, Darcy mentioned that he was low on Siakam, and I agreed with that. But I think the real type hole that they're missing is if you're going to see Siakam take a drop, God, we need to see some more offense out of a guy like OG Anunoby, because I know he's more 3 and D type guy. But look, if Siakam is providing the output that he is, which is horrendous perimeter shooting, an inability to create out of the post, unless it's a fast break situation, he really struggles to get easy baskets. He's not a guy that can shut down an opposition wing. We're struggling to really see where a guy like Siakam's value is. So I think if OG can take another step, then that'll obviously really help, because at the moment the load is so much on Kyle and Fred that it's just asking way too much for guys like that. I know for a situation like the playoffs, it's okay. They did it in the bubble a lot where Fred and Kyle played basically 38, 40 minutes a game, but that's obviously the playoffs. And, you know, even though they lost in the end, they still threw the kitchen sink at Boston with everything they had. But man, I really think the only guy that can really help get him out of this slump, because as you say, Fred went off against the Celtics the other day. Kyle's been playing pretty consistent ball. Like he normally starts off the season really well, Kyle. So that's no surprise. But I just think the key guy is OG outside of the guys you've mentioned, Kyle, because Siakam's dropped off. So there's got to be some sort of balance there by another guy stepping up. I mean, Norman Powell wasn't good the other day. I know he's more of a scorer, let alone anything else, but he wasn't good against the Celtics. And so if you're not getting production out of Siakam, OG, and Norman Powell, that puts a lot of pressure. Boucher, it seems as though it's either a block or a foul with him on defense. There's nothing in between, which kind of hurts. It's all or nothing for the most part. His size, as you say, is quite a worry, because he's just got no muscle there to be out on the floor. I mean, you think about a guy like Embiid. If Embiid sees Boucher, it's barbecue chicken. Like it's kind of a joke for the most part. Yeah, it's worrying with Baines. You think he come in and be a bit more of an impact. Not sure of how his fit is going to go in the next, say, few weeks to a month.
He's not getting any shots, Baines, it seems like, from what I've seen from them. And I'm not sure if Norman Powell's not getting done at practice or whatever, but he's not getting any shots either. So it's almost like Nurse is not really sure about his bench right now, and they kind of is all leaning on those kind of stars that we expect to produce. And yeah, that's what's making it tough for them right now. It's a bit blasphemous from you, Kyle, saying that the Canadian team, you're champions, and you're saying that they're a team that you're down on. I still think they'll bring it back and they'll get back into relativity. I'm not too concerned. I'm a little bit concerned about Pascal Siakam as a star. Well, you know, should be an all-star. He was an all-star starter right now. He's not even averaging 20. So I think he's probably the biggest problem for me.
17.6 points. He's shooting 40% from the field. Baines is averaging 7 shot attempts, but he's only shooting 39. I'm looking at their PERs here. I'm on ESPN. Freddie's is at 21. Freddie's is at 21. Lowry's is 15. After that, there's a couple guys at 11, Pascal and OG. Boucher's leading the team at 24. I don't know how good that PER is or not, but it's always talked about, you know, player efficiency rating or whatever. But he's leading the team 3 clean points ahead of Freddie. But yeah, back to OG as well. He's struggling as well. He's not. Where is it here?
He's not shooting well from 3.
He's shooting 40% from the field, 71 from the line. He's getting his steals, 2 steals a game, 6 boards, but 12 points. It's like identical to last season. It doesn't feel like he's really made any improvements. There was talks of it, that he was going to make a jump, kind of like we're talking about. McCall Bridges needs to make a jump if he wants to be an all-star. OG hasn't made any sort of jump. And Demi, I feel you. I know what you're saying. I should still hold faith, but I think that big spot is just so, I don't know. It's too big a void to fill. And these current guys they have, I don't know if they can do it. And like you said, for it to be filled, Pascal has to be overwhelming. Like, I don't know. It's early.
Who's the number one option? That's a tough question, Like, oh yeah, it's Fred, is it? But he's 5 foot.
I know it's hard. He can only get hot. He can't be hot all the time. He doesn't have
that's interesting.
Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Kevin Durant just turn around and hit a jumper on you. Like Pascal has that. But
got to see it.
Well, I'll just say with the Raptors as well, you guys taking, oh no, I shouldn't say you guys, but it's only natural. Malachi Flynn was the pick you guys took in the first round. And I thought that was a let's say a prelude to potentially that you guys were resigned to maybe losing Fred VanVleet. It was kind of like security or insurance to bring in another small guard after potentially losing one in free agency. But yeah, I can't exactly remember off the top of my head who was available there at that pick that you guys took at the late first. But it feels like, man, if like you guys wouldn't. Again, I hate speaking about Boston, and Darcy and I just spoke about Boston and Peyton Pritchard. I'm not sure if a guy like that would have been better suited, but he does look good early. Maybe you guys should have just taken a big man, knowing what you know now, so you can at least develop that out of that position. Because, as you say, there's not much at the moment with Baines and Boucher. And I actually thought you guys were in the running for Tristan Thompson. I was surprised the Raptors didn't end up with him. That felt like a match made in heaven in the offseason.
Yeah, that would have made sense. That would have been huge. I guess Boston maybe coughed up a bit more dough. Maybe Toronto was tied up in the Freddie contract and that. I just looked it up. Malachi was drafted 29th. I've seen some talks on Twitter. I follow a few Raptor Twitter fans, and there's a few of them asking, where's Flynn? Like, why aren't we playing him in certain situations? There's been times when he could have went in. Desmond Bane was taken right after Malachi Flynn, and he's playing pretty good.
He has.
Yeah, he looks all right.
Better than Dylan Brooks, right, Dus?
Oh, don't get me started. Jeffrey was telling me you don't like Brooks either.
I hate him.
I had Jim Jackson Jr. in fantasy last season. Brooks I was just grabbing it. I was like, give the ball to Jared. What is going on here? Let this young guy develop. Like Brooks thinks he's cold.
Brooks is unbelievable, man. His mindset, every time he gets the ball, he's like, he just must think like, who the hell can stop me? Like, I don't know what's going on in his head. Is it like monkeys like clapping, or I don't know. He just gets it and he's like, I'm going to dominate. Like, he's just honestly like, who can stop me? And then the shots he puts up, I mean, he'll make 1 out of 10 that I'll go like, wow, that was tough. And then the other 9 will be like, what are we doing here? Like, anyway, Das knows how I feel about Brooks. Yeah.
LeBron hit him with this one today.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
I think he only hit him with that because Brooks was chirping earlier, talking something to LeBron, so he had to,
But that's the only thing that's really good about Brooks, I reckon, is he's chippy and he'll go at LeBron and think he can guard him. In some ways, that kind of blind confidence is good.
I like that. I like that part about him for sure. He's
Canadian. He's Canadian too.
I know that's why it's hard for me to hate him. But you know why? It's okay. We can send him into the deep bench because we got guys like Lou Dort and Shea and Jamal. We got guards, so we can. But he's kind of a forward. He's tough. He's not bad. He just needs to have a better IQ and just make better decisions. But that's what I'm questioning too. Is Taylor Jenkins just fully allowing this? Is some of it on Taylor? I mean, they almost made the playoffs last year, but then is that Taylor Jenkins or is that just like how good Ja was? I don't know,
They don't have a backup for Brooks. That's the problem. They've only got Grayson Allen there, I think. You know, they don't really have a solid 2-3 man. You know, they don't really have one. Melton, actually, who they re-signed. So it'd be interesting if he starts playing good, whether Brooks's minutes come back a little bit.
Melton and Tyus are both kind of points almost too. Melton's kind
Bit
of
small,
but he's small kind of. But yeah, that's a good point. They need to get somebody there to supplement John and Triple J. You know.
I would actually start Melton for the foreseeable future until Jar's back. I rate him so much more than freaking Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones seems like you'll know what you'll get out of Tyus Jones. That's fine. But Melton's the guy that's got potential. Melton can drop 30 on any given night and also like set up the team pretty well. I reckon just give him the keys in the offense. I've seen enough with Dylan Brooks, and the probably missing part that Memphis dropped off last season as soon as they made the trade to get Justice Winslow, because they gave up Jay Crowder in that deal along with Iguodala. And Jay Crowder was a pretty big piece for Memphis and how they were sort of on their run last year. He was, you can sort of overlook him as potentially a guy that's not that important, but man, he was important for that Memphis crew when they were going on their run. And it was clear when they came to the bubble that they were missing Jay Crowder because they were pretty bad in the seeding games. And then a guy like Jay Crowder would have been pretty handy for those two play-ins against Portland. That's for sure.
100%. I don't love Jay Crowder just partly because of his stint in Cleveland. I don't know, he kind of just gave up there, but he is solid, and I got to give it to him. You know, he was huge for Miami. He's a big piece. They probably should have kept him. To gamble on Winslow, I mean, I guess it's a gamble against a young team.
Yeah,
but it's kind of better to stay competitive as a young team a little bit too. Those guys get like John, you know, they get used to winning a bit more. Like right now, man, you don't want to end up in Minnesota situation.
No, well, Kyle, they were my low, so we've sort of covered off of Minnesota, and it's ugly. I don't want to start looking at the draft, but Darcy and I are pretty worried if it falls outside of that top 3. Jesus, Golden State get another top 5 pick.
Beasley's leading them in minutes per game. Not that he's like, I like Beasley, but that's just kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, we've spoken about Minnesota and their glut of wings. Makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. To try and bring this back on a positive note, unless you've got anything else to bring up, Dust, did you want to hit on your second high, Kyle?
Yeah, my second high, we don't need to go crazy into them, but it's the Lakers. They're sitting I mean, and the reason I put him here, I mean, everyone always talks about Lakers, so it's not, I guess it's kind of the boring pick, but it's just because I haven't really liked the way that they play to start, but we're still 6-2, which is second in the league. Played one less game than your boys over there in Philly. So see what happens when they have their next game, whoever that's against, if they want to retain the number 1 spot. But they're not playing the best, the Lakers. They're still kind of in championship hangover mode a little bit, I feel like. And they're still kind of adjusting. But Dennis Schroeder, Marc Gasol, solid additions to the starting lineup. You know, one thing I'm kind of down on is
Kyle Kuzma.
You know, the lack of Dwight in that second unit.
Yeah. I've loved having Dwight at Philly. I was actually very worried he would go back to the old Dwight, the Charlotte Dwight, the Houston Dwight was actually okay, but the Charlotte Dwight, the Washington Dwight, that sort of guy that he demanded post touches and wanted to live back in the 2008, 2009, 2010 era when he's well beyond that. But so far so good. Just for a little bit of Dwight chat, he's been huge for actually our bench. And there's actually been quite a few games this year where he's taken some of the rookies out to put up shots after the game. I don't know if you've seen any of that, but he's done that quite often. So he's taken a leadership role, which is super surprising for me. But yeah, just going back to the Lakers, I'll throw this over to you, Das. I thought LeBron was going to rest, but he seemed to play quite a lot of games so far.
I've got him as the number 1 option on my fantasy team, and he's been day-to-day since the first game of the season. He's been day-to-day, ankle soreness, might not play, and every game he started and put up his normal line. He's an Iron Man, he doesn't like to miss games, which is obvious, and he's that good that in games like today against Memphis, he can cruise. He can cruise on the court, get assists, play some pretty good defense without trying too hard. And then if he hits a couple threes at the top of the key, then all of a sudden he's a massive problem and he's taken over the game. I think it's interesting, Carl, that you talk about how they don't have Dwight anymore, because when AD kind of comes off the floor, you kind of lose that physicality around the basket and that guy that can't be guarded, or that guy who can do a hard foul when the time needs to be done.
Mhm.
And I think you're right that that'll be good for Philly. When Embiid's off the floor, there's no rest. We're bringing in Jack Dwight Howard, and he's going to foul the crap out of you or dunk on you. So I think you might be right that the Lakers kind of lost a little bit there, but Montrezl Harrell's a bit of a dog as well. He doesn't back down. He's not as big as Dwight, but he's quite tough. And they've got a guy like Wesley Matthews, who out of nowhere is shooting amazingly so far, hitting lots and lots of threes. He's tough, he'll fight guys, he'll get under guys' skin, he'll do that kind of Bruce Bowen stuff on whoever the other team's best player is until he gets in a bit of foul trouble and goes to the bench. So I think the Lakers, they have got some really nice depth. And yeah, I haven't seen in particular Anthony Davis have a dominant offensive game, yet they're absolutely rolling at 6-2.
Yeah, it's only averaging 22 AD. Yeah, that's the thing. It's yet to be seen. Just back to your point about the Dwight for Montrez, like that's yet to be seen in terms of the physicality. Even though Montrez brings it, Dwight is just a bit more of a monster, bigger, guaranteeing you a rebound almost. But Montrez brings that dog and that offensive firepower Dwight really couldn't bring. So, I mean, like you said, Wesley kind of don't really skip a beat, losing Danny, gaining Wesley, and then Schroeder adds a new dynamic. And then Talen Horton-Tucker's development has been.
Chris likes him a lot.
Chris, is he already higher than the Caruso in the pecking order? He's averaging minutes per game. Is that just because of position?
Well, Kyle, I was saying to Darcy, I thought he would be the new Caruso, as in that sort of secret weapon that the Lakers could just sort of bring off the bench and just bring in some sort of an impact. Like Darcy and I have spoken about his measurables before, but 6'4" in height, but he's got a 7'1" wingspan. Like, what the hell is that for a guard? Like that's like alien type build. Like that's like he's obviously got a weird body as a result of it, but man, the dude can play. And Darcy watched a few of the preseason games where the Lakers played up against the Clippers, and Darcy made a good point of it that, Talen Horton-Tucker wasn't out there to just sort of space the floor. Like Talen Horton-Tucker was given the ball to, create a little bit in the pick and roll, and he was given that responsibility, and he not only took it with both hands, but he showed a real ability to create out of it, be it playmaking or just finishing for himself. And when LeBron's in there, he doesn't need to do much. Just play off LeBron and AD. If you get closed out, attack the rim, make the extra pass if there's a man on you, or shoot the open shot. And so when Talen Horton-Tucker's role simplified, he obviously has excelled so far. But even if he's asked to do a little bit more, he's shown the ability that he can do that as well. So second round pick, wasn't he, for the Lakers a couple of years ago? So another second round gem that you can sort of seem to add to that list. And I think we'll see his true value in the playoffs as well.
Can't write off Caruso though. Caruso, he started in the closeout game in the NBA Finals and had a really good game. He was a guy that Vogel trusted to defend and make plays on offense and bring the energy. And he shot the ball really well. His jump shot is really, or his three-point shot at least, is really kind of developing. So I think they're actually missing a bit of energy from Caruso right now. When he comes back, they'll be better.
Yeah, I think that Caruso's known, as in before it was kind of like Caruso could just come in and people would sort of be surprised by it. They're like, what? Like, this guy looks like, a dad I'd see on a Sunday at like the park kicking with his kids. And here he is like making a cut and just like dunking on someone who's just like in his way. It's like, what's going on? Like I'd see that guy at 9 a.m. mass. Like, how is he like balling? Like, I don't know.
And he's balling too. Like he's dunking on, and then he's blocking. He's doing it. He's making all the highlight plays. So it's easy to like him too for that reason too, But he can really hoop. Same with Taylor. He can really ball. And I think, like, I don't know. He's just got more IQ than Kuzma. Kuzma's almost cut from that Dylan Brook cloth, whereas like Taylor actually makes decisions He'll actually make a cut, move off the ball. Like you said, it's easy to play with. It should be easy to play with AD and LeBron. People talk about how Kuzma's kind of getting robbed, that he's not getting, the exposure, the shot attempts. But it's like, I don't know. I was really high on Kuzma early, but it's his decision making that's consistently not really improved. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. There's Kuzma. There's who else can we add to that list? Dylan Brooks, as you said. We can probably throw Dion Waiters in there. I'm sure there's a few other names we're missing out on, but it's that kind of mentality where they see themselves as some superior, like, as you say, Kobe, like Steph Curry, like combination, and everyone else sees them as like just these pretty average role players. And they're the ones you got to worry about because, again, we go back to the best role players are the ones that absolutely excel in their job. Like if your job's to just literally rebound and run the floor, which for the most part Dwight's is now, that's awesome. He's really good at that. But as soon as he starts demanding like post touches and wanting to go back and live his glory days in Orlando, that's when it's like, hold on, what are we doing here? Like you can be an absolute beast at doing the little things, but most people want to do the flashy stuff. So I don't know. I think the extension that Kuzma got kind of reflected that. I think it was 3 years, 40, his rookie extension that he got in this offseason. And most other people, we mentioned him, OG Anunoby, he got a bigger deal. Jonathan Isaac got a bigger deal. Derek White got a deal. I'm sure I'm missing out on a couple of others, but for the most part, that probably covers off on all of them. But Kuzma's was the one that was like, oh, okay, that was only like 10 mil a year, and it's probably right. It's probably fair given what he's shown.
Appropriate.
Yeah. He didn't deserve what those guys did.
No.
He didn't show what Isaac has shown on defense or one of the other guys you've mentioned on offense. So yeah. Pretty good contract for the Lakers. I was hoping they wouldn't have to pay him too much. That's not bad. It's still tradable too, I think.
Very, very team friendly, that sort of deal. Okay, well, that was awesome hearing Kyle's 2 highs and 1 low that he went over. We'll definitely make sure to get you back, Kyle. I think that was awesome discussion that we just had. But Kyle, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, so now we've come to the fun part of the pod, and we're going to hit on some rapid fire questions. So I've put together 5. Darcy, I'll start you off with question 1. More likely to win a championship in the next 5 years? Knicks or the Pelicans?
Got to go Pelicans there. That's an easy one. Start me off with an easy one. The Knicks have looked good so far, but the Pelicans have got to go on at Zion Williamson. And he flies above the rim. Brandon Ingram's already an all-star. Pelicans, I like what I've seen from their coach so far as well. Definitely Pelicans.
Okay, number 2. Who would you rather start a franchise with? Devin Booker or Brad Beal?
That's a good question. So we're starting a franchise today with one of those 2.
Correct.
Yeah. I think I'm sure the age difference isn't actually that much, but Beal's already in his prime. I think I'd probably have to go with Booker. I think he's got more potential, I suppose, to even kind of go to an extra level. I think Beal is critically underrated and one of the best players in the league, definitely an all-star caliber player. But starting a franchise, a guy I can build around for the future, I'd go with D-Book.
Okay. Number 3. So you have a wide open corner 3 for the win. And these guys are at the age they are right now. So not in their prime, the age they are right now. Who are you giving the ball to? Vince Carter or Ray Allen?
Only one of them played for the Mavericks, baby. I'm going with VC, Vince Carter boy. He hit a game winner for us. How could I possibly go away from him? A playoff game winner.
Will Ray Allen hit the Miami 3, the most famous one? The offensive rebound. Not for the Mavericks, whatever.
Not for the Mavericks. I'll trust VC on that one.
Okay. All right. Number 4. This is for this season. Who's more likely to finish top 4 in their respective conference? Phoenix or Indiana?
That's a really good one. I think both the teams are poised for a top 4 finish, but I think it's not as tough at the top of the East necessarily to crack top 4 in the West. I think the 2 LA teams are basically locks there. I think it'll be harder for Phoenix to go in, so I'll go the other way. Indiana for sure in the top 4 over Phoenix in the top 4.
Okay, final question. Number 5. James Harden is on which team by February 1?
February 1. When's the trade deadline?
Oh,
It's after that.
it's. I think it's late Feb.
Yeah. I don't think he'll be moved until right on the deadline. I don't
Okay.
think Houston, they're not in any position for it. So I'm saying he'll be on Houston Rockets.
Okay, still on Houston. All right, perfect. Well, there you go. That was the rapid fire. So just to cover it, Das went Pelicans, then he went Booker. He then said Vince Carter. He then said Indiana, and Houston is where Harden will be Feb 1. Man, good answers.
I think you went a bit easy on me on that one, mate. There's, some easy picks. The Ray Allen one's probably the hardest pick there, actually.
Well, man, Ray Allen's the deadliest shooter you've ever come across effectively, and Darcy's played the homer pick. Anyway, whatever.
You got both those guys open in the game-winning shot. Either of them's a good decision, I reckon.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, perfect. Well, look, Darcy, there's plenty of opportunity to do rapid fire again in the future. So knowing what I know now, I'll up the ante for the next one, that's for sure.
Wicked, can't wait.
There's only one way to finish, and that's with locks of the day. So after today, which is Wednesday, the 6th of Jan, Darcy is 8-10. I'm 7-7. So look, we're traveling okay. The reason Darcy, if you can do maths like most people, so Darcy's actually done 18 and I've done 14. That's because Darcy has done a couple where he's done 2 locks for the day. So he's dipped into a little bit of roulette there, going with 2 to potentially take a hit on 2 or to either lose on 2. So a couple of unfortunate ones. He picked up a nice one today with Dylan Brooks, which if I could bet the under every time for Dylan Brooks and his efficiency, I would, but that's not a prop. But yeah, I think if Dylan Brooks had an over
only as good as your last bet.
True.
Only as good as your last bet.
Darcy's really hot. So anyone listening to this, you've actually got to tail Darcy for his next one. The guy's on fire.
Watch out. Watch out. I'm about to hit you with some knowledge.
Okay. So Darcy, do you want to take the lead then to give out your lock of the day for Thursday?
For Thursday, I've got Houston at Indiana. I've got the Beard, James Harden, in a combo of points, rebounds, and assists. He's going over 43.5 for sure. He could go over 43.5 points by himself. That's at $1.89.
Okay, $1.89. How did he go against Dallas?
Oh, he wouldn't have been over that. I think he had 24 points against Dallas, 8 assists. I'm not sure how it went in rebounding, but yeah, Dallas were able to subdue him, which just means he's probably due for a humongous game.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that's a good one.
What do you got?
I've gone back to one that I've used before, but it worked well for me. So I'm going back to Milwaukee Bucks total points. I'm going back to the well. So they're at 120.5 total points, and that's paying $1.89. Now they're coming up against the Detroit Pistons tomorrow. So Milwaukee at home to Detroit. They actually played the other day as well, and Milwaukee won by 10 in that, but they put up 125 points. But the reason why I like this so much is the Pistons on average give up 118 points a game. So what we're asking is, Milwaukee to put on 3 more points than their average. And I just love actually the Milwaukee garbage time lineup. They have this kid, I think he's actually injured for tomorrow, but I think his name's something like Sam Merrill or Merritt or Merrill. I don't know exactly his last name, but it's something starting with M. And the guy can shoot. He's got a nice comb over, but the dude will pull up on your head. They throw Connaughton out there for a bit of garbage time. They have their first round draft pick. His name's Jordan Nwora, and he's out of Louisville, and he can shoot. They then throw out a guy like DJ Wilson. And the reason why I say all this is because I think it's going to be a situation where I'm going to have to rely on these guys to continue putting up points, because I think, unlike the other day, Milwaukee's going to take care of this game early, and it's going to require these garbage time players to continue the scoring to be able to hit that, beat that 120.5. So look, I'm putting my faith in them. I think they can get it done, and I can't see it not hitting, but crazier things have happened. But it's $1.89. But the last time I went to it, it was actually 124.5. And that was when they were at home to the Chicago Bulls. So I think you can probably put the Pistons in that category with the Bulls defensively anyway. and we'll have to see how it goes. But that's what I'm sticking with at the moment.
Detroit, they can struggle offensively at times, and I'm not sure Blake was out last game. So if they don't have Blake, then I know D Rose is basically their best offensive option after that. So if they can kind of lock those guys up, I can see Milwaukee running it up in transition easily.
I don't know how long this episode will end up being, but it's going to be well over an hour.
Wicked.
So I hope you guys enjoy listening to that one. As always, again, we've got the YouTube, we've got the Spotify, trying to get the Apple Podcasts up and going, but we've always got the Insta account, and I'll start actually putting out little clips, so little snippets from the full version you'll actually start to see on the IG page as well. But yeah, keep liking videos, keep subscribing, keep telling anyone you know who's into basketball and not into basketball about it. Darcy and I
send us a message. Send us a message if you've got something to talk about, an opinion you want to talk about. We're all ears.
Yeah, 100%. And keep hammering us about our locks of the day if you don't agree with them, but we're going to keep posting them either way.
We're still going to be posting Dylan Brooks content no matter what.
Okay, we might need a new host then if that's the case. But Darcy, thanks as always. We'll speak to you soon.
All right, mate. See you soon.